In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, God is one. Amen. Good morning, Father Alexander. Your prayers also. Happy feast to you. This morning, when we were doing the services for St. Maximus the Confessor and St. Neophytus, as well as St. Agnes, we thought how strange it was, really, that not more is made of St. Maximus in the services themselves. They are relatively brief. So it wasn't great matins, for example, just a very ordinary sort of form of daily matins, no gospel reading for him, and so on and so on. So, yeah, strange. You'd think that somebody of such heavy theology and extraordinary witness would be fated much more by the church, but no. Anyway, there we go. Good morning, Helia, and good morning, Christine. Good Friday, yes, that'll be cheering up Anton, I think. I'm not sure whether he likes Friday or really hates it. So thank heavens that's another day, another week over. Good morning, Zoe. God willing, see you on Sunday, bright and early, without having got lost and all the rest of it. So I hope that goes well. Probably yes, as Father Maximus the Confessor would indeed like, not being taken any notice of, but on the other hand, we should not allow that to get in the way of taking notice of him. Today, weather. Well, Tony is not here in the monastery today. He is in Ireland. So we might even get an update of the Irish weather. But the update of the weather here in Gatton, that doesn't mean to say it's like this anywhere else, is it's sort of chilly, grey, cloudy. Even though I'm sort of colourblind, which means I can't really see green terribly well, my greens always look slightly brown. It looks like somebody has sort of taken a wash of slightly brown paint, sepia-coloured paint, and washed it over everything out there. So the grass looks brownish, the pond looks brownish, the trees look brownish. Not brownish over there, over towards Derbyshire. That's a sort of grey-blue, a bluish hill of the Wrekin over there too, which always reminds me of Mount Doom in The Lord of the Rings, which I don't really like much, but because it's got a red light on top of it and gives us that idea on top. And then grey above there, so not the most beautiful of days, although actually it does look beautiful. Gary, good morning. Dino, remember your brother Pepe, who is now into his last hours of life this morning. A long, terrible battle with cancer. Pray that Christ takes him soon. Amen. 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 Absolutely we will. Been praying and thinking about him like mad, and I hope that the end is easy for him. God bless you, Dino. It's very difficult, I know, when these things happen. Pray for you and your son as well. God bless you. Happy Friday, Anton. We've been offered Happy Friday already. Spiro is better and back at work. Jolly good. Only hearing a sound every fifth word. Not much I can do about that. It's completely no good. We'll give up. And I know that yesterday I was trying to Skype people, and that was pretty difficult. It comes to us, the internet comes to us on a satellite, so things are not always as good as they could be. Okay, it's getting better, is it? Good. Now today we're going to look at Luke chapter 4, verses 31 to 37. And the main thing that Luke is doing here is balancing two different things the Lord does, preaching and teaching with miracle working, the two things together. And that is an important thing to keep in mind here all the way through. So, then he went down to Capernaum, a city of Galilee, and was teaching them on the Sabbaths. And they were astonished at his teaching, for his word was with authority. Now in the synagogue there was a man who had a spirit of an unclean demon, and he cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Let us alone. "What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? Did you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be quiet, and come out of him." And when the demon had thrown him in their midst, it came out of him, and did not hurt him. Then they were all amazed, and spoke among themselves, saying, "What a word this is! For with authority and power he commands the unclean spirits, and they come out." And the report about him went out into every place in the surrounding region. Okay, here we go. So we start off verse 31 with the Lord going down from Nazareth and the whole surrounding area around Nazareth and Judea, not in Judea, the whole surrounding area around Nazareth, which is in Galilee. And he goes down into the city of Capernaum. Not much of a city by our terms. It would have had about 1,500 people there. But the area around about had about 15,000 people in it. So in British terms, a place like Louth in Lincolnshire, not a large place. It's got about 14,000 people, but a good-sized town is Louth. But this would have been an area of population. But the big thing is that it was on the sea. And being on the Sea of Galilee, of course, it meant that you could get in a boat and visit all the other towns around the sea. I lived for a short time in Guatemala, in a house that I lived in for a very short time, which was a cabin really, rather than a house. It makes this shed here that I live in the monastery look like a palace in comparison. But those the little place there, the great thing about it was down on the lake, and you could travel to all the other 12 towns around the lake by boat, or nowadays, of course, by car. But originally, they traveled from place to place by boat, and people used to go fishing on that lake that's now so polluted that it's not safe to do so, which is a pity. Anyway, so quite a good place, more than quite a good place, a very good place indeed, to begin a mission. Rather like when the missions here in these islands were begun, the missionaries often started off either on a river or in an island. So somewhere like in London, or in Iona, or Lindisfarne, or somewhere like that, because you could then boat to different places, which was by far and away the best way of getting around. Although I must say, I'd have arrived feeling terribly boat sick, seasick, it would have been me. Even if I'm being driven somewhere, I need to drive rather than be driven, because I get car sick if I do that. Anyway, so it's here from Capernaum that the Lord is going to start the mission proper, and where he gets the majority of his apostles from, all of them from this one small place. And he goes and he starts off by teaching on the Sabbath. There's nothing strange about that, except that it's in the present tense and the Sabbath is in the plural. And he is teaching them on the Sabbaths. So this becomes something the Lord did habitually in Capernaum. He went into Capernaum and he carries on teaching and teaching and teaching there, Sabbath after Sabbath. And verse 32, and they were astonished at his teaching, for his word was with authority. Now, that is interesting in itself. The Sabbath, of course, to begin with, is the day of rest. It's the day when God looks and he sees that everything is now absolutely perfect. There's nothing left to do. He doesn't need to do any more work, and therefore he can rest. And like everybody else, they also do rest as well. They rest. The day of perfection, nothing needs to be done. And on that day, he teaches Now, St. Ambrose says that he teaches on that day in order to show that what he's doing is he's beginning to make a new creation. The word, the logos that he gave at the beginning, he now gives in his teaching, and in a sense, he is creating anew. Okay, new things are happening as a result. So, verse 32, this teaching of his astonishes them. And the word there in Greek actually means brings them into a state of panic and shock. That sort of astonishment, an astonishment of panic and shock. This is not the sort of preaching where typically, I think that in this country here, most people are used to the idea of, and you see it very often actually, in films and TV shows where there's a Church of England vicar, a Church of England priest, and everybody is filing out of the church, and they say this one person after the next says to the vicar, "Nice sermon, vicar," or "Nice service, vicar." And I guess back then they'd have said, "Nice sermon, rabbi." But this is not one of those moments. This is not nice sermon territory at all. His sermons, his talks, his teaching threw them into a panic. Exe pleresonto, it is said, throws into panic. His teaching genuinely shocked them and panicked them, very frightened at the end of it. And why? Partly because he was teaching with authority that came out of himself. The authority itself was his own. They actually say, for his word was with authority. Now, you can sometimes hear sermons or teaching, a bit like I'm teaching at the moment, where all the way through you are, the person is quoting from somebody else. Okay, it might be erudite. It might show considerable learning. The person quotes all sorts of authors and texts and clearly demonstrates they know what somebody else is talking about. And somebody else might have the experience that they themselves are alluding to. Others they preach from immediate experience. You can tell often when a holy person is doing this, they talk directly from their own experience of God. They don't even say, "Thus says the Lord." They talk about the spiritual life, and you know that this person has been in contact with God. I remember that feeling with St. Cleopas of Romania, a Sihastria monastery, when I was there many years ago, half my life ago now, and this immediate knowledge that you were in the presence of somebody who knew God, who knows God. Similarly with Saint Sophronia of Essex, when one met him, you knew you were in the presence of somebody who knows God. You didn't have to ask him what his authority was for anything he said or did. This person knows God, and that's it. What they say has that authority. The word itself, authority, being used here is important because it emphasizes that the Lord is clearly showing that he himself is speaking as if God. Okay, as if God. He's speaking with his own authority, and the only person who can really do that entirely about God is God, of course. The word in Greek is exousia, which gives the idea of force and competency, freedom, total mastery of the subject. And the only way really to be a total master or mistress of any particular subject is to be the subject yourself. Somebody said to me yesterday that everybody likes talking about themselves more than about anything. Have we come back? I think we've come back. Unstable. Just froze here, so hopefully we come back. So everybody is able to talk about themselves because they should be, most people are, experts about themselves. And the longer they carry on, the more expert they become. Okay. Now, so they are amazed by this. And then Luke begins to balance this with the actions of Christ. Now, in the synagogue, verse 33, there was a man who had a spirit of an unclean demon. Luke very rarely talks about spirits of an unclean demon. Normally he says an unclean spirit. So he's emphasizing this here. He has a spirit of an unclean demon. It's not just something accidental, he says. He means you to understand this is a big issue here, a big issue. In the synagogue, on a Sabbath, a place and a time when perfect, right in the middle of the synagogue, there is a man who has the spirit of an unclean demon. And this person spoils the everyday worship. And he does so in a really strong way. It says that he cried out in a loud voice in English, but in Greek it says anikrazen, which really means he screams out. And the church fathers pick up on this and show this chaos within this man. He's not sitting there nice and quietly and enjoying and, taking part in the service and enjoying the Psalms and learning from it. He screams out. He puts this pre-creation chaos back into the proceedings, place where everything should be perfect. He screams out. And what does he say? He says something. He starts off by saying, often it's translators. Let's pause a moment. I don't think we're going to get anywhere. Apparently, this pause, has it? Are you hearing anything? I think it's crashed ultimately. We might do the whole of this again. You can hear and see me? Okay. Right, well, I'll carry on in that case and I'll have a look later on. Here it's saying that it's frozen. Signal fine where you are? Okay, well, I'll carry on. I'm just thinking whether it might be worthwhile doing this in a different way. You can. Okay, so he screams out. He says, in sometimes it's translated as ho or hi, but in Greek it's ia ti imin kesi Jesu Nazareni. Okay, and what this actually means is ho. What to you and to me, Jesus of Nazareth. And it gives the idea of what in Zambia, where they say two people walking in parallel, that actually there's never going to be any meeting point between the two. They're always going to be separated. There's never going to be any time when these two actually cross over and come to any sort of understanding. Okay? What to me and to you, Jesus of Nazareth. And sometimes it's translated in different sorts of ways. What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? But it also means exactly the other way around. What have you to do with us? What are we to each other? What is that to me? It can also, and each time I see it buffering, I shut up for a moment. Here it's according to this, nothing is happening at all. Must be healed. So the Lord doesn't say be quiet, what he uses means be muzzled. So it means, when you put a muzzle on a dog, or you put a muzzle on a person so they cannot say anything. So it's a little bit like the angel saying, do not be afraid, to Mary, to Joseph, to Zechariah, and also to the shepherds. Don't be afraid. It's a miracle. They cannot be afraid now because they have been given the wherewithal not to be afraid. Okay? Do not be afraid. So the demon, by shutting up, is not acting willingly. And then he says, come out of him. Now the man throws himself down on the ground, is thrown onto the ground. But the other miracle here is that he's not hurt by the demon. They would have been used to other people casting out demons where the person did get hurt. And part and parcel of all of this is that the man with the demon is not hurt. Okay? Jesus rebuked him, saying, be quiet and come out of him. And when the demon had thrown him in their midst, it came out of him and did not hurt him. Some of the fathers say threw him in the midst, in the middle of them, but also in the middle position of life. So he's neither overexcited, nor is he the other way around. What I might do, Suzanne, is redo this a bit later. Quash this and do another one. Then they're all amazed and spoke among themselves, saying, what a word is this? Okay, it's actually exactly the same words that were used earlier on. Then they were all amazed. Actually, that's a different word. This is a different thing that's happened here. Earlier on, you remember they were thrown into panic. Here they have something called thambos, which means stupefied with terror. They're stupefied with terror. And this stupefaction is something that, they don't know what to think. Their brains have been scrambled now. They cannot make sense of any of this. And they then repeat word for word what was said in verse 32, which is, what word is this? For with authority, okay, again with authority, what word is this? For with authority. But they add the word and power. So they were panicked by his teaching, but by his actions, they're stupefied. And in this way, Luke tries to balance the two things the Lord is doing. He's going about purifying the area, and also he is going about teaching. And both of these things have a similar effect on his hearers. They are stupefied and they are panicked by what he is doing. Panicked and stupefied. And so both themselves. Okay? And the emphasis then comes, for with authority and power, he commands the unclean spirits, and they come out. Not the fact that they are commanded and they come out. He commands and they come out. And then everybody gets to hear it. So he not only teaches with his own authority, but he also commands the demons on his own authority, and out they come. Okay, I'm going to finish there because this is also quite tricky. We've been going on 25 minutes. Goodness only knows how much of this you've heard, but I shall have a look later on. If you get the basic thing, I shall not do it again. If you don't get anything, I'll video it and put it back on. Right, let's see what people are saying. Good morning, all sorts of people. Good morning. Who do we have? Stella's only hearing every fifth word. That's probably quite lucky, actually. Carl, good morning. God bless you. Good morning, Suzanne and Dimitra. Yeah, there are lots of technical problems. The trouble is we're high up on the side of the hill. I think probably if a cow moves or wags its tail or something, then everything goes wrong. There's probably a sparrow sitting on the aerial. That could have just the same problem. Father Alexander is reminded of the palace at the Mead House in Norfolk. The chickens were kept there. For them, it was a palace. Yes. I remember that. It was great joy, actually. And when we had put all sorts of things into it, and some things were even funnier, but I don't think the kids actually got to see that. And Father Alexander was back then only a kid. Because I was, about 36 at the time. Gosh. Not getting much from it. Okay, Stella, never mind. I'll see what I can do later. I'll have a look to see what it's like. Christina says, authority in these holy people is a deep wholeness of being, unfractured, opposite of the word taught yesterday, oppressed, which is crushed or smashed. Yes, quite right. Yes, it's true. And these holy people, there is a unity about them. There's a oneness, which often in the Bible, the oneness about somebody is translated as purity. But purity doesn't really cover it. They say, blessed are those who are pure in heart. It doesn't really mean that. Brokenness about their heart. Their heart is not, as it were, divided. So trying to follow two different things. Okay. God bless you, Dino. I'm glad you can see things. People are saying everything's fine. You can't hear a darn thing. All streaming beautifully in Batsy. Well, there we go. Maybe it'll be okay when you come back to it later on. Okay, right. We're only going to pray for Pepe today. I'll pray also for Dino and for your family, Dino. I know how it is when I've sat next to people as they have entered into death. Their life becomes complete in that way. And there's a sort of mixture of feeling about how you feel, no matter how much you love somebody and however much you want them to stop suffering. You know very well that any minute now, this person is going to become your memory rather than who they are. And that itself is shocking. But alongside that, we have to remember that Christ has risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs giving life. So we'll pray for Pepe with that in mind. May God bless him, protect him, forgive him, and bring him to everlasting life, and give you consolation. Now, next week, we will, on Monday and Tuesday, I won't do this, because I will be traveling. So Monday and Tuesday, nothing of this, but on Wednesday, God willing, all other things being equal, we'll start again, and hopefully from somewhere where there's a bit more of a good stream happening. God bless you. Good morning, Alex. Goodbye, Alex.